Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I'm Jeremy Cherney. I'm the president of Tobin Solutions, and normally when you come to one of our webinars, it's to talk about IT and security and Office 365 and things like that. Um, we are here to talk today a little bit about that, but really more about your business overall. One of the things, if you've ever seen any of our trade shows or anything where we bring our lucky bamboo. What makes it lucky is the where opportunity meets preparation. And so I say that the bamboo is there to remind you to kind of make your own luck. It's getting a little crazy out in the world today. People are in a lot of different spaces around that. And I thought, what a great opportunity to bring in my business coach, and I'll let them introduce themselves here shortly, who I've been working with Action Coach for a number of years. And they bring a lot of great common sense information to a situation like this so that we can actually get into action and make our own luck on St. Patrick's Day. So I will turn this over to Dave Steffen.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you all very much for joining us today. Unfortunately, we are not in the best environment to do this, but that's okay. That's what we're here to chat about. So what we're here to do is we're here to talk about what you can do in response to the COVID-19 pandemic from a proactive standpoint versus a reactive standpoint. What we're not here to talk about is really all of the hype or the non-hype or the right or wrong response or reaction that you see out there in the world, or anything political relative to whether or not we're handling it right, not handling right, any of that. The reality is this. It's in front of us, and it will continue to impact our economy as we've seen it, both in the business world and the community world, and as well as all the people that we have externally. So we just have to deal with it. That's the reality. So our intention today is really threefold. So number one, that you walk away with the fact that you can control your controllables, that mindset. That's the number one thing. So if there's a phrase that you wrote down, control your controllables. Second is focus on what you can do instead of what you can't do. And then the last thing that we want to make sure we do is provide you some steps that you can start taking action on today. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end. So as we go through the information, please be sure you submit your questions, and we'll make sure we try to get to those at the end. And then we'll also have an offer at the end. We'll have an opportunity for you to meet with one of us coaches one-on-one for a more personalized approach to tackling this particular situation. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, let's be blunt. 2020 is going to look different now. Whatever you thought you were going to do in 2020, whatever plans you had for 2020, whatever strategies you were starting to look to throw to the market in 2020, that's all changed with this. That's just the simple truth. So we have to look at it differently. We have to think about it differently. Now, the impact is going to be different depending on your business cycle. Some businesses are impacted immediately. We're seeing that in the restaurants world. We're seeing that in the event world. Other industries are going to be affected maybe as late as 6 months from now before they actually see the impact from a business standpoint. But the reality is that you're going to be impacted. So get your notepad, grab your pen, get ready to take some notes, and let's help you through this. So first and foremost, number one step to take is to communicate. I cannot stress this one enough. Over-communicate. Communicate, over-communicate, over-communicate. The more you can communicate with people, the easier it's going to be for them to work with you and around you. So think about it from the standpoint of who you're communicating with. That's your team, that's your customers, that's the various networks you're in, that's your suppliers, that's the stakeholders, that's your community. Do this daily. And explain, as you're talking to people, make sure they understand that this situation is fluid. Things are changing on an hour-by-hour basis in some cases. So, something that you communicate now may change an hour from now. So make sure they know that it's fluid, and that you're going to do the best that you can. And that and make sure you're communicating that people should expect change. Transparency is going to breed loyalty in this. So the more transparent you are, the more upfront and honest you are with people about what you're doing, how you're doing it, the easier it's going to be for them to accept it and move forward and help. So this is the group you need to make sure you're communicating with. If you're not really good at messaging, you've probably received a ton of emails already from various vendors or businesses that you do business with. There's some great stuff out there. Do some market research, and don't be afraid to copy some great stuff that some of those people already have had to say. But just get in front of your team on a daily basis and let them know what's going on. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the stuff you communicate as we move through. Second point, be positive. Look, here's the reality. Yeah, it sucks, no question. This is a tough situation for everybody right now, but it's going to pass. And when it passes, the floodgates are going to be open, and we're going to move forward in a very big manner. So sitting here right now, recognizing that panic and worry is not going to help you resolve this situation. You got to look for all the small wins that you can throughout the day, throughout the week, and get excited about things. I have the statement there: how can I sell toilet paper? So obviously with everything that's going on in that world, you make light as much as you can about some of the things that are going on that are ridiculous in nature, and make you go, huh? Really? Seriously? That other point there, sometimes less news is better. Look, the news stations are doing the best that they can to get information out, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be eating all of it. Know your sources. The best source to go for right now in terms of information on this is the CDC, Center for Disease Control, and the WHO, the World Health Organization. Recognize that the White House has a public press conference, a live press conference every morning. Any chance you can get your information from live press conferences is going to be best, because then you don't have to filter through the interpretation of what somebody else thought they heard. So that way you can make your own cycle. But look for every opportunity that you've got to do things. So when you think about your business, what are some ways that you can do your business differently? Brainstorm ideas on how you can do things differently. The companies that take advantage of the situation now to start thinking actively and proactively and start putting their plan into place are going to be stronger, better, faster, leaner on the flip side of this, and the ones that don't are going to be left behind. So be the one that's out there in the front. Think in can terms versus can't terms. Now is not the time to worry about what you can't do. Now is the time to think about what you can do. And just know that this will pass, and there's going to be, the flip side has got a huge huge opportunity that's going to be waiting for everybody. Best example I can give you is we were just talking this morning. Think about all the restaurants when we're able to actually start socializing again. How many restaurants are going to get flooded with people because everybody's been tired of sitting at home because they've been homebound or locked in or whatever? The restaurants and bars are going to get full. So think about that. The next point here is know the cycles. So, in general, there's general business cycles that take place: the summer, the fall, the winter, the spring, 7 to 10 years, 3 to 5 years, 1 to 3 years. So, every businesses are going to have different cycles, but know where you're at in your cycles and think about where your customers and vendors are in their cycles. So that you can understand how the impact is going to affect all of those players. Another thing to consider is think about all the political cycles. We've got an election coming up in November. That has a business cycle as well. We usually always see a significant uptick in the economy during election year. So recognize that that's going to happen. The education has a cycle. Industry has a cycle, and there's always an uptick in the end to late August before school starts again on some industries. So know your cycle in relation to the other cycles, and also watch the international cycles. Some of those international cycles can predicate what's going to happen here. So when you start watching China's rebound efforts now, or you start watching Italy's rebound efforts, when that starts to happen, those will be the things that we'll be able to see that will start happening here in the US. This fourth step here is change. Look, the reality is you have to change. And the sooner you get ahead of that change and lead that change, the better off you're going to be. We've got the formula here that we use in Action Coach. Dissatisfaction times vision plus first steps has to be greater than the resistance. If you wait until your dissatisfaction is so high before you make a change, you're already behind the eight ball. Create the vision of what the future looks like for you now and start taking those first steps in terms of that change. You can't wait. And if you start planning now, look, the worst case scenario is you've got a great business plan in front of you and you're going to be better, leaner, stronger, and faster at the end. Make sure you're looking at every aspect of your business, all of the products and services that you currently offer, all of the pricing options that you have, any delivery options, all the staffing options. Look at every aspect of your business and start breaking it down in terms of how can you improve and how can you make that better. Yeah, there's no doubt you're going to have to put more time into this, but it's not necessarily time that you're actually doing stuff. A lot of this has to be time that you're spent thinking about your business. Start thinking about it in a different way than you are right now, and start planning for that. Had a conversation with a client the other day, and we were talking about what their future looks like because they're probably not going to see any impact for about 6 weeks based on how their business cycle hits. And so we're starting to talk about everything that they're doing and start to ask ourselves questions about what additional products can they offer now that's going to become needed down the road. So there's different things that are going to be available to you. Sometimes you might have to break it. We often take the adage, if it ain't broke, don't break it, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it, or whatever you want to look at that. Well, sometimes you might have to break it because it's just not the right thing based on the way things look right now. If the business is not helping, if the aspect is not helping your business, then you may need to look and break it. We were just chatting a little bit before this seminar. We were talking about how many things are we going to realize that we can do without based on the situation that we're in right now. We see that sometimes in IT when all of a sudden the database becomes inaccessible, and then you realize, oh, well, we haven't used that database in the last 2 years, so we can eliminate it. So, there's things that you can do without, but recognize that you're gonna change and be okay with that. Next step is to cut back. Here's the deal, guys. Cash is king. The more cash you can have and the better reserve you have, the easier it's going to be for you to hold through this. Now, a key point here to think about is you're going to need to get in front of your accountant. They're a business partner of yours, so make sure you talk to your accountant and start to lay out what your time frame is in terms of what your reserve looks like. So when you map that out and you know exactly what that time frame is, it'll give you a better sense of what steps you have to start taking and at what point to start taking them. So as you think through that, when you think about what your cash reserve is, and we're going to talk a little bit on credit in a bit, but think about your cash as the credit available to you to use to help weather the storm. Yes, this may be the time that you actually have to use your credit card to pay a mortgage payment, but that's obviously in normal times that's not something you would do, but at this time you might need to do that. So think in those terms. The point on stop spending, well, it's not necessarily stop spending, but it's be very conscious about what you're spending money on. As you're going to look at some of those spending opportunities and things that you had planned for 2020, take a look. If it's helping your business get through this, then you're going to need to spend your money. So for example, marketing and sales are not things you cut back on. You want to keep putting money into your marketing and spending. You have to keep that funnel going. But other things that you might have thought about doing, you may decide to hold or have a conversation with the supplier or vendor that you're working with, and they may be willing to work with you because they want to keep their teams employed and keep their team productive. So there may be ways that you can negotiate different payment plans or processes with them to continue on. So think about where you can reduce your outlays. What are the things that you can live without that are not necessary? Reach out to the vendors that you've got, suppliers that you've got, see what kind of renegotiation options you have now. Start to slow things down on some aspects. Maybe instead of doing something in a month from now, maybe you hold off and look to do that 6 months from now. But yeah, last point there, keep marketing and selling. I cannot stress that enough. The number of businesses that are going to fold in this are going to be huge, and it's because none of them are going to take advantage of keeping that funnel full. So keep your funnel full, folks. Uh, Point six, and this is where you're going to need to get your bank manager, your business banker involved. Talk to them about what your options are in terms of extending your credit. If you don't have a line of credit, look to get a line of credit. Go out and get more credit cards. Uh, Maybe look at reinvesting or refinancing your mortgages, refinancing home mortgage line of equities. The banks, the cost of money is really cheap right now. Take advantage of it. Open up the line of credit. It doesn't mean you have to use it, but it will be there if you do. And now it's going to be now is the easiest time to get it. It may not be this easy in a month from now or 6 months from now. So start doing that now. Start looking at where the lowest rates are, and start switching things the best you can. Negotiate lower rates if possible. Go back to your banks and see if you can get better interest rates. But ultimately, the amount of the greater you can, the more credit you can extend for yourself, the easier it will be for you to cash manage this process as you go through. All right, step 7 here, staffing cuts and changes. All right, so let me be very clear. So first and foremost, let's take a step back. You spend a lot of time, energy, effort, and money and resources recruiting, hiring, onboarding, and training the team you have. You don't want to just all of a sudden fold up the shop and kick them all out the door, because it's going to cost you 3 times as much to bring anybody back. So you want to take this seriously. You want to think about how you're going to approach staffing cuts. If you know what your time frame is, and you know what your cash reserve is, and you know what your line of credits are, you can say, okay, this is how long I can stand, how long we can continue business as usual, before we have to make those cuts. So get a good handle on what that looks like. If your business is such that making staffing cuts is going to be a necessity, and you know it's going to be a necessity, then just do it. Do it all at one time. Or you can just let natural attrition take its course with some people. And a good way to think about any reduction in forces: remove your C and D players first. Keep your A and B players and remove your C and D players first. You may also look to your team and say, hey, is there an option for any pay cuts? Maybe it's a short-term pay cut that your team is going to be willing to withstand for right now, because as an employee, they may be saying, hey, a job making less is better than no job making nothing. So, think in those terms. Suspend any kind of bonus programs you have, or defer those, or hold off on those. Things you may also consider doing, particularly if you've got some rock star team members, is think about a retention bonus. Hey, if you stay with me during the next 6 months during these really tough times that we're going to have, I'm going to give you a 6-month retention bonus at the end. So there's a lot of different ways that you can look at your staffing, but the key is have a plan. If you have a plan, it's not going to come as a surprise. And communicate that plan to your team. Your team is going to be mostly concerned about what's in it for me. Will I have a job tomorrow? The more transparent you can be in terms of this situation, the greater that loyalty is going to come to help you work through the situation over the next 6 to 12 weeks, or however long this kind of holds true. So communicate that with people. All right, moving on. Step 8, plan work from home. So if you've got a team, and you have the ability to allow them to work remotely, now's an opportunity to try that. So take a look at what technology you have. Take a look at your IT provider. Again, that's another business partner you need to bring into the equation and have a conversation. I'm fortunate that Mr. Jeremy Cherney here with Tobin Solutions, they've got a great process to help companies go remote, help their team go remote at large scale, small scale, whatever scale is necessary. and do it in a way that still creates a very secure and safe IT environment. So get with your IT service provider and talk about your plan. If you don't have that, maybe you can. Now, here's some things to think about. From that standpoint is when you are starting to have your team work remotely, depending on what your business is from a delivery standpoint. If, for example, you aren't able to actually deliver your product, but you want to keep your team, what are the tasks you can put your team onto? What are some assignments that you can give them during this time? Some things to consider would be creating additional systems for the business, creating processes for the business, creating checklists for the business, doing brainstorming with as a team to say, how can we get better and improve? So use their time in a way that makes sense for you and the business, even if you can't do the delivery of your product or service. Start thinking through the daily tasks that you have in terms of, okay, so who's going to answer the phone? How are we going to collect our mail? Who's going to be here for shipping and receiving? You know, all of those things. Start making a note of all of those daily tasks that have to get done and figure out how, if you have your team working remotely, those tasks that require somebody to be at an office or a location physically, that those tasks continue to get done. This is a great time to start working on your business, not in your business, but on your business. So start thinking about the new products and services you can offer. Start thinking about the systems and documentation you need to have. Create that priority list. What are some new methodologies you can implement around your marketing process, around your selling process, around your delivery process? You know, this whole situation could be weeks, it could last months. So you have to have that plan of how you're going to utilize your team and think in terms of what your business will look like on the flip side. All right, step 9, online or delivery. So, you know, we've seen some of the restaurants have shut down and they've had to switch all of their activities into either a pickup or delivery mode only. So, you know, they had to have those pieces in place to be able to do that. So what aspects of your business can you deliver virtually? What are some additional, maybe some customer loyalty things that you can start delivering virtually? Maybe it's a training, maybe it's a how-to, maybe it's a whole different set of online tools and resources that you can provide for your customers that help them do or use the products and services that you currently give them. So how can you get back that to them? Now, this is something you really want to make sure you don't wait on, because if you wait, you're going to go into reactionary mode and then you're too late. Your competitors have already figured it out and they're ahead of you. Identify or be very communicate very high on how you're going to handle this and what precautions you're taking to ensure that everybody knows the safe process. So I've seen a number of mails come through from like We Energies, like, hey, this is how we're testing all of our employees. You know, sick employees are asked to stay home. They're not coming to the workplace. So communicate those things to your customers and vendors so they know the steps you've taken to ensure their safety, especially if you're going to have any kind of in-person delivery. People aren't going to come to you. You have to go to them. So figure out what you can do to get to them. Identify how you can package things into different accounts so that people have access to their account, you know, online. People can access and communicate with you online. If you don't have an online chat session, maybe you create an online chat session so that people can access you with questions. All right, step 10, market and sell. Got to keep this one going. This is the time to increase it, not decrease it. I know marketing is one of those expenses that, or one of those things that people say, you know, it's an expense and I really don't need it. No, you need it. You have got to keep your funnel full. You have to make sure that that branding and awareness and everything is out there, because you're going to be needed. Your services and products are going to be needed and continue to be needed as we work through this. So work with your marketing groups, the vendors that you're doing business with, negotiate rates. Many of them are going to be willing to negotiate some rates right now, and talk about new avenues of marketing your business. Create new offers. Measure your 5 ways. If you're not an action coach, basically a 5 ways is a really strong tool on how we measure business success and how we can improve business. So if you know your 5 ways, know what you're impacting and watch those needles daily. Think in terms of getting cash up front with people from a marketing standpoint. So maybe they put a deposit down for a service that you're going to deliver at some point in time in the future. So just continue to market that funnel. Change how and what you market. How can you factor the current situation into your marketing? What you're telling people, the message you're delivering to people needs to change based on the current environment today. Find new ways to help your customers buy your products or services. Excuse me. And offer deals for cash. All right. Step 11 here, repeat business. Look, as any of our clients know, we know that repeat customers are the golden ticket. Repeat customers equals profits is basically the line we like to say. So if you've got customers that continue to do business with you, treat them like gold during this time. They're your best customers. They're the ones you love, and you want to make sure you continue to take care of them. Create some deals just for them to say, hey, thank you for sticking with me. Give them opportunities to buy in bulk. Give them opportunities to extend the length of time for the services. Give them payment plans to say, hey, you know what, instead of this, why don't you pay X per month over the next 6 months instead of giving me a big chunk up front or 50%. You want to do everything you can to keep them at all cost and stay in communication with them. Find out how their business is doing. Ask them how you can help their business. Get in front of them. 80-20 rule is going to apply here. So stress that you guys are in a partnership together, and you're going to go have a freaking phenomenal adult beverage when we're all done and over this thing. It's going to be a great big fun time. Okay, so I know it says 11 steps, and yes, you're reading that right. There are 12. The last piece here is just common sense, folks. I mean, seriously, the amount of stuff I see on social media and the amount of stuff that I've seen, hit some of the airwaves, it makes you chuckle. I mean, my goodness sakes, why in the heck are we fighting over toilet paper? Seriously, what is going on with that? But just use your common sense on stuff. Communicate as much as you can. Be nice to people. You don't know what they're going through. Don't assume that just because that you have an issue that they're having the same issue or not having that issue. So those are the 12 points that we've got. So here's some finish up items for you to do. So number one, get with your action coach and make your 90-day plan. For those of you that are not an action coach client, reach out to either Todd or myself, and we're gonna give you an hour free coaching session to actually help you create your 90-day plan to make sure you can respond in a proactive manner. With your controllables mindset through this COVID pandemic that we've got. But right now, what I want you to do at the end of this call, list 5 ideas that you need to take action on today and do it. Don't think about it, just do it. Write them down, get going. Tomorrow you can work on another 5, and the next day you can work on another 5. So you just want to keep moving forward because the longer you stand still waiting for this to get better, the longer and farther you're going to fall behind. So I think at this time we're going to go ahead and open it up for some Q&A and leave it there. Here's our contact information. Like I said, Todd and I are available for a 1-hour coaching session to help you put your 90-day plan together. And we will sit down, probably do it virtually or over the phone, depending on what's best for you. And get that going. Also, if you go to the actioncoach.com site, you can on that site is a tab called Crisis Management Resource. Take a look at that. And yeah, let's get to work, guys. This is going to be fun. I think it's opened up for questions. So anybody have any questions? Am I talking to dead air? Anybody out there? Hello, hello.
Very good presentation.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you.
I think we're all in shock. That's all.
Yeah, and I get it. It's look, we've never experienced something like this. I mean, you can go back even to 2008, and the economic impact in 2008 during that time wasn't anywhere close to what we're kind of seeing now. And the unfortunate thing, and this is really where communication comes into play. It's uncertain. Things are just uncertain right now, and when things are uncertain, people's emotions will get high. And but you know, it's the what's great about that is now you've also got that time, because most of you are probably sitting at home in your PJs with your bunny slippers on, which is awesome. Hopefully you've got an adult beverage cocktail sitting right next to you as well. Is that you can start thinking about your business in a different way than you have in the past, instead of getting so focused on trying to get to that last or next email or everything else that you had going on. So this is the time that you just take a step back and say, all right, what can I do? What can I do? What do I want my organization to look like in 3 months from now?
Right. That's really, really good advice that you've given. And I think it's just everybody's going to need some time to process it. So you might get some questions here in about 5 minutes.
What? For what?
I'm not sure if that's a question in the background or just a conversation. Can't really.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't really have any questions at this point, but I will probably get a hold of one of you two and set up 1 hour session. So I'm gonna bow out.
So I
Thank
got a
you.
question here from Stacy. So stock investments. So how would you convince people to invest in the uncertain? That's a really, really, really good question. So when you look at, all right, so there's a couple of ways that you can think about this. You're going to go to bed tonight, and it's uncertain whether or not you're going to wake up tomorrow, but you're still going to go to bed tonight. It's not going to stop you, even though tomorrow morning is an uncertainty. So you can look at it as saying, all right, you know what? Tomorrow is just going to be dark, and nothing good's going to happen, so I'm not going to invest. Or you can take and flip it around and say, you know what? I'm going to invest in the future today, because I can make that. So when I control my controllables, I can make whatever I want my future to look like. So if I invest in that today, I'm in control, and I've empowered myself to own that going forward. If you decide to sit in a state of denial, put your head in the sand, you know what? Your head's still going to be in the sand tomorrow morning. I don't know if that answered your question. I know that there's also some question in terms of investing in the stock market, on whether or not you actually should invest in the stock market. I'm not a broker, so I'm certainly not going to be able to give you that advice. But what I can tell you is some of the big players are buying because they can, and because it's cheap. I've also heard that it's going to continue to get cheaper. And all of the experts have said that the market correction, we were due for a market correction anyways. It's just happening somewhere in the 3 to 12 month time frame sooner. So when that market correction was going to happen, people were going to start buying up stocks at that time as well. So Stacy, I don't know if that's your question. If not, certainly reach out to me or Todd, and certainly help you with a little more better guidance. So last thing, I guess I'll just kind of add, people often ask me, Dave, what is it that why are you a business coach? And the statement that I make back is, it is very, I find it very painful when I drive down the street and I see that a business that I knew existed that was there, when I see an out of business or the doors closed, I find that painful. And so what I'm doing now, going back to some of these treat your customers first, I've actually spoken to all of my clients, and I am making myself as available to them as I possibly can, because I want them to thrive and be stronger, better, faster on the flip side of this. So, and I'm opening that window up to every business owner I can possibly get in front of, because I hate, hate, hate watching businesses close. All right, guys. Well, thank you all very much for your time. As I said, please do reach out, get some help, talk to your bankers, talk to your accountants, talk to your IT providers, talk to all of those business support people that you have at your disposal. Now is not the time to be prideful. Now is the time to take action and make it work for you. Have an awesome day, and go have a drink.